The other things he was doing right around 1929, like this painting, The Great Masturbator, which, you know, perhaps his father wouldn't have been too wild about either. But anyway, this also, the central kind of edifice of this painting is a kind of, see the eyelashes, it's a kind of self-portrait of Dali, as is in the Persistence of Memory, another early shocking painting, and one that made it across the Atlantic fairly quickly. So his fame was already beginning to move around in a big way by 1931. So again, this notion of self-portraiture, but these kind of soft profile figures were based on rocks that he had seen in the area around Catechus, and specifically Craves. In here you can see the sort of similarity of the shape of that figure, and he uses that self-portrait figure, kind of very Freudianized self-portrait figure, over and over again in this period. So through the way he uses it, we know it's a sort of self-portrait figure. Though it might not be obvious if you just saw it out of context. This idea of soft forms, undulating bland forms, he may have got from looking at the architecture of Gaudi, which was the sort of Catalan variation of the Art Nouveau. This particular house, which still exists in Barcelona, had these kind of undulating terraces made out of reinforced concrete. So Dali was very curious about kind of exploring both hard and soft forms and their conjunction. Later he claimed that he doesn't understand his pictures, but they do have meaning. One wonders to what degree we can believe this. I think maybe he did understand his picture much more than he was prepared to let on. And what he's doing is constructing meanings by positioning certain images within these kinds of discourses that are available, or psychoanalysis, or literary ideas, or whatever. Another gem about Freud. Freud discovered the world of the unconscious on the timid surfaces of ancient bodies, and Dali cut drawers into it. This is the Venus de Milo with drawers cut into her. So the idea is that, you know, within the world of classical, there beneath that sort of, you know, rationality are the dark interiors of the subconscious mind, represented by the drawers with their furry handles. So metaphors of exploring the unknown, the inner world of psychoanalysis, and the inner world of Dali's own mind were persistent through the mid-30s. At the time of the International Surrealist Exhibition in London in 1936, he turned up in a diving suit to represent his capacity of exploring the depths of the human psyche. He then nearly suffocated and had to have assistance to get out of this diving suit before smothered. He was full of interesting paradoxical statements, like the only difference between a madman and myself is that I am not mad. And that's clearly the case, that he's constructing these different ways of looking at his work in paradoxical ways often, but that he's not mad, nor can we explain at all whether he liked his mother or hated his father, or so on and so forth. During the 30s, there were all sorts of, you know, political turmoil in Europe. One of the important events was the beginning of the Civil War in '36, and Dali had done this major painting prior to the beginning of the Civil War called Soft Construction with Boiled Beans, and later he called it Premonition of Civil War. And it has references to Goya and all sorts of things going on in it, that there's this idea of a kind of primordial internecine struggle. when Dali goes to New York in 1936, he's on the cover of Time again. The assertion of the self, the image of the self becomes ever more key in our understanding of Dali. And it becomes, after the war, one of the central ways in which Dali presents himself to the public, and one of the central ways in which his work is understood by most people. And that doesn't go away. And in '63, he does this portrait of my dead brother, which to some degree has a kind of self-portrait function as well. Even seems similar in some ways to that baby picture of him that appeared way back in the first days of spring, but it's also considering the dead brother as this double stand-in for himself. All of which is to say that the building of myths from 1929 onwards is a constant that runs through all of Dali's work, and so I hope that that might provide you with some sort of key for entering Dali. It's not the only way of looking at it, but it's an interesting sort of thread that we can trace through many aspects of his work. And with that, I'll stop and thank you.